I didn't feel like I was working as much as I was just having a conversation with people and learning. And I think one of the one of the privileges that I've had over my brief career at Kitco was the opportunity to learn from everybody.
Yes, meet the secret genius behind Kitco News, one of them, whose interviews have garnered tens of millions of views in total, who's had conversations with some of the top minds in the space, and who just left Kitco to start his own venture. Of course, I'm speaking about journalist David Lin, and today we turn the tables on him and find out his story. What's your background, man? How'd you get into interviewing?
Thanks for having me, guys. I mean, big fan of your show as well. I actually met you guys in Miami, and I think I told you the story offline. I saw you guys, and I didn't know who you were at first, but then as soon as you told me HoldCoin Daily, I was like, yeah, I'm a big fan of your show. I just didn't put the face to the channel because you don't always show your face when you talk, but it was a huge honor to meet you guys in Miami, and we've been friends ever since. But yeah, my background, I did my Bachelor of Commerce in Finance at McGill University in Canada. And then I worked in macroeconomics research for 4.5 years at a firm called BCA Research after I graduated. And then 4.5 years later, I got an email or a LinkedIn message from a recruiter at Kitco who was looking for a producer at the time. And I've been interested in journalism. I did a stint as an editor at a newspaper at college. And so I thought, okay, you know what? I was young at the time. I was in my mid-20s. Let's try a change and see what happens. And I really liked the combination of journalism and economics that I was able to apply at Kitco, which was what ultimately lured me and drew me into the company. So that's kind of my background. Actually, before I did finance, I wanted to be a musician, and my mom said no, so that didn't happen. But I trained really hard as a kid to do music.
So you're a producer at Kitco. How'd you go from doing interviews and then doing interviews full time for them?
Well, I didn't start off doing interviews. I started off as a producer. My job was to book guests, write questions for the anchor, and do the post-production and post the videos online. And so I did that for about 2.5 years until the previous anchor at the time at Kitco, Daniela Cambone, she left for maternity leave, and then she went on to move to another channel. And I basically was given the opportunity to do a few interviews, basically subbing in for her. And I guess they liked me, so they kept me. So that I just kept that going.
What's the secret, David? Because I looked on the Kitco YouTube channel, and your interviews are some of the most popular ever viewed on the channel. So what is the secret to a good interview?
You guys are just as good of an interviewer as I am, so you probably know more than me. But look, it varies person to person, and there's no one, I would say, magic formula. I would say the interviewer's job is to have a conversation, and what I've learned from this job is that in order to be a good conversationalist, you have to be a good listener. But I think too many people, when they go into a conversation, whether it be for business or for an interview or personal, you're always thinking about the next thing to say. Sometimes just unwind. Don't think about pulling the trigger on the next thing you want to say, and just sort of listen and absorb, and don't say anything. Talk when you're ready, move on. And by listening, you're able to understand the conversation better. And ultimately, what makes a good interview is for the host to understand the topic and understand what the audience wants to know and steer the conversation in that direction. And you're not able to do that if you're not actively listening.
Definitely. Your follow-up questions throughout the many interviews you've done are good. I see what you're saying with that. And something I noticed when we met in Miami originally for Bitcoin Miami, and then we also got to spend some time together, hang out. We were part of your interview at the Future Blockchain Summit in Dubai, but I saw you in Miami. I saw you in Dubai. Respect to you. I saw you seemed like you legitimately loved the job, buzzing around, getting people to do interviews, like legitimately banking those interviews because, you were there to work. Could you speak about that a little bit?
I didn't feel like I was working as much as I was just having a conversation with people and learning. And I think one of the privileges that I've had over my brief career at Kitco was the opportunity to learn from everybody that I've spoken to, yourself included, Aaron and Austin, both of you. Learned a great deal just talking to you guys. I've had you on the show a couple of times. And so all these smart people are talking to me constantly. And I feel like I'm not really working. I'm just having a conversation with cool people. So in a sense, yeah, it feels like from the outside, I was working really hard, and I was, doing 8 to 9 interviews back to back a day. It gets tiring at the end of the day, but it was fun for me. And I think that's what kept me going, was the prospect of talking to somebody interesting and learning from them. And that to me was the best part of my job. I was in a position that not a lot of people were able to be in, which is that I was privileged to be able to have access to a lot of smart people and just have a conversation with them.
David, the elephant in the room, everybody's wondering, why'd you leave Kitco?
Yeah, it's kind of a thought I've had for a while, and props to the Kitco team for giving me a fantastic learning opportunity. But I've been there for 5 years, and I feel like it's just time to move on and try something new. I've only ever had 2 jobs since college. So the first job at my macroeconomics research firm, and then the second job at Kitco, both for about 5 years. And I feel like after 5 years, it's time to try something new. I want to expand my horizon in media, and ultimately I want to be an entrepreneur and work in fintech and launch my own products. But for now, I want to just expand what I've been doing in media and do my own business there, and expand from that, building on the experiences I've had in both my previous jobs. And so I've always been interested in science and tech and finance. And so I want to just steer the conversation I'll have on my new channel in that direction, and less about commodities, which I feel like I've covered extensively at Kitco, and nobody in the field does it better than them. And of course, that'll still be an asset I cover once in a while. But ultimately, I've left because I wanted to start my own venture.
Is it true that they say don't really get the money you want or move up in the job you want unless you leave, because they just kind of take you for granted if you start there? Not in so many words, but would you say that's true, that that money was an issue?
Money was not really an issue for me, and I told I told my former boss when I left, and they were very generous with me throughout my time there, and they've been very good to me. And I told him, look, money is not really the issue for me. I'm not asking for a raise. I'm being paid well here. I'm just trying to, I want to do something new with my life. So even if you offer me $1 million, I'm probably still going to turn it down. Not that I hate the job, but I just want to try a different lifestyle. So, it wasn't that I was underpaid, and it wasn't that I was looking for more money. I was just looking for a career change.
So it's more about the creative control and doing your own thing.
Yes, in a way. I mean, I did have creative control at Kitco. There was nobody standing over my shoulder asking me to do things. I mean, once in a while I was given guidance by my colleagues, but for the most part, I was able to do what I wanted. So there was an aspect of creative control while I was there. But yeah, I definitely will have more of that on my own, and that's something that I think appeals to everybody. I mean, you guys, especially, you've started it from the ground up by yourselves, and you've had ultimate creative control over your career, and you know exactly what that's like.
100%. And we love it. And I do also want to say that we got a chance to hang out with one of your producers, John, and some of the Kitco team. And we love Kitco. John's awesome. Hopefully we see him again in Dubai.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your channel though? And I'll link it down below.
It's going to be called the David Lynn Report. I'm going to be covering economics, finance, crypto, fintech, science, a little bit of poli-sci, and every once in a while I have a celebrity on the show. It's building on my passions in finance and economics, and my goal here is to democratize financial literacy and provide the audience access to some of the world's foremost experts in their respective fields, whether it be science, technology, finance, or economics. And the idea is to have, or to give the audience a chance to gain an insight on what's happening today and what they should know from an investor's perspective. And basically, I thought to myself, how can I give the education that I've had in college and then later in my career basically for free to the world, And I think that's kind of the ethos of any journalist. And that's basically what we've been doing at Kitco. And I think Kitco has done a fantastic job. And I kind of just want to extend that and do my own thing with it.
So this will be on YouTube immediately and new media exclusively?
Well, it's going to be on YouTube and some streaming platforms, but primarily on YouTube. And of course, I'll post short clips on other social media platforms as well.
Out of all the experts you've interviewed in the past few years, what's a piece of advice or tip that you really gleaned and took away with value?
The advice that I took away wasn't so much financial as it was more personal. And I think from a personal finance perspective, the people that have survived recessions or crashes or lost a lot of money and recovered from that, they advised against younger people like myself to take on too much leverage, take on excessive risk while trading. And it goes against kind of the ethos of a lot of people our age, especially what you see in Wall Street bets and forums such as that. There seems to be this reward online for garnering too much risk or excessive risk taking, and people seem to be patting each other on the back every time too much margin was taken. And of course, we've heard horror stories of people losing all their money, and worse. We've heard obviously success stories of people getting on the right side of the bet and 100xing their return, and we see that in the crypto space as well. But generally speaking, I would say the best advice I've gotten from people twice my age with twice my life experience who have survived crashes and recessions and lost a lot of money and recovered from that, they have always disciplined themselves to invest only what they're able to lose. And I know we hear that all the time, and I know that's kind of a trope advice and it's cliche, but it's difficult to do when you're actually doing it. And I think a lot of people who are just starting off trading have a tendency to overextend themselves, which is risky. And I think that's one advice. The other advice I've heard, again, this is cliche, but stay humble. All of us, as we progress throughout our careers, doesn't matter what we do. And if you're a doctor, you're a politician, you're in finance, you're in media, like you and me. As we find success or progress throughout our careers, it's easy to lose sight of where we came from. And so staying humble is really important.
Totally agree. I like that. I will certainly be subscribing to your new show. Looking forward to it. I guess my final question, David, is let's manifest the future. What is a dream guest for your new show? So not somebody you're going to get necessarily, but like dream guest for your new show.
Dream guest for my new show. I've always wanted to talk to Michael Jordan. Not because I'm a huge nerd when it comes to basketball, but I've just admired somebody at the top of his craft. It's not easy being the best in the world at anything, let alone a sport as competitive as basketball. So I wanted to understand how it is that he got to where he was. And of course, he was later also a very successful businessman. So I think somebody like him would be very interesting to talk to.
Hey, by the way, before I let you go, generally speaking, what's your portfolio look like right now? Like 10% crypto, 20% equities?
I was mostly in cryptos actually earlier in the year. I sold most of that off. I have a little bit of Bitcoin, but it's like a negligible amount. So I'm like mostly cash right now. And I didn't sell it off because I foresaw this big crash. Like I wasn't a profit or anything, but basically it hit a target that made sense to me. Bitcoin. I had a bit of Solana as well. I was interested in Solana, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. Those are my three top holdings. And for me, they all reached a target that I was comfortable with. So I just sold it off, and it just kept sliding down. So I never got really back into it. I'm waiting for it to bottom. We're all looking for that bottom. So whenever we see major signs of a move upward, I'll consider getting back in. And the stock market's been in an interesting pattern as well over the last couple of months. It's been on an upward trend as well, and that to me is interesting. So perhaps we're due for a recovery in the global equity and crypto markets. We'll see.
David Lin, I'll be following. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Austin and Aaron. Pleasure to be on your show, and thanks for having me.